a scholar warrior, a soldier, a diplomat warrior, a humane warrior.
I recall that first time we met about 26 years ago during the Kargil War in Ladakh.
13th June is a day which nobody in the Indian Armed Forces and our country should ever forget.
Because we were, part of our own operations in the area of Dras and Mashko Valley.
Tololing was like mission impossible.
And then he gave me the success signal, Yeh Dil Maange More.
I would have goosebumps when I'm listening to this story. After 5140 was captured, that was a big victory. One of the generals, if I remember correctly, was telling me one of the toughest peaks to capture.
We used to get letters from the whole nation.
Captain Vikram Batra, he was so full of life and so in awe of you.
He knew what he was doing. And the enemy fired, he got around here, he fell down. And he laid down his life, for the nation, for the battalion.
So China के साथ एक तरफ friendship हो रही है, दूसरी तरफ चुमार और डेप्सैंग और डेमचौक पे उनके incursions भी हो रहे हैं. How much in your assessment did the Chinese suffer?
They suffered about 45 plus casualties.
In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Yogeshwar Shri Krishna tells Arjun, Hathova prapyasi swargam, jitva va bhokshasi mahim, tasmad uttishta kaunteya, yuddhai krit nishchaya. If you're killed in battle, you go to heaven. If you win, you rule over earth as beautiful as heaven. Therefore, O Kunti Putra, take a firm resolve and fight. My guest on this Chakravyuh special broadcast and podcast is someone who epitomizes living by the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. A scholar warrior, a soldier, a diplomat warrior, a humane warrior who's buried Pakistani soldiers in war, both literally and figuratively. It is my proud privilege to welcome on this podcast Lieutenant General YK Joshi, Vir Chakra, Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, PVSM, AVSM, SM. Sir, welcome on the Chakravyuh podcast.
Thank you, Gaurav. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to be meeting you again. I recall that first time we met about 26 years ago during the Kargil War in Ladakh.
And sir, even then, when I saw you in battle, I said, this is one colonel who is so dashing and so fearless, because it was my privilege to see you, Captain Vikram Batra, who won a Vir Chakra, sadly posthumously, Rifleman Sanjay Kumar, who won a Vir Chakra, and you were commanding the bravest of the brave, 13 JAK Rifles in combat. I want our viewers to know about that and to know how that Kargil War was fought in 1999, and the general story is truly the story of India's wars and struggles against two very hostile adversaries, whether on our northern borders or on our western borders, right from the 1990s till date. And general, that's exactly why I think this podcast is very, very important for this generation to know and for future generations to know, not just about the Kargil War, but from Kargil War to Ops Snow Leopard. You were army commander that time, and you've spent all your life, whether you were commanding a battalion, it was in Ladakh, you commanded your brigade in Ladakh, you commanded the division in Ladakh, you commanded the corps in Ladakh, so you were dealing with the Chinese and the Pakistanis all your life. Let's begin, and you commanded the Northern Army. So let's begin right from the beginning, sir. 1999, everyone was talking about, wow, India और Pakistan के बीच दोस्ती हो रही है, लाहौर बस यात्रा हो रही है. You were posted in Jammu and Kashmir, and what was happening that time when suddenly the guns started booming in Kargil?
So Gaurav, going back 26 years, in the year 1999, my battalion was deployed in the valley, in Sopore, doing counter-terrorist operations in that area. The battalion had completed about 2 years, and we were finishing our tenure, and we were to move out to a peace station. And I, as the second in command, had already taken the advance party to a place called Shahjahanpur, close to Lucknow, where the unit was to move for its peace tenure. And I was doing the hand takeover there with the relieving battalion. We were to relieve, and then Kargil happened. So overnight, from Shahjahanpur, in fact, initially from Sopore, my battalion was inducted, part of 8 Mountain Division, across the Zojila Pass to a place called Gumri, to be part of the, Kargil operations, Operation Vijay. And my advance party was also directed to go back and join the unit back in Gumri for the Kargil operations. So overnight, we moved to Chandigarh, and we were flown in IL-76, I still recall it very clearly, to Srinagar. And 10th of June, I moved in a convoy and crossed the Zojila Pass and joined my battalion in that place which I am talking about, Gumri. And this was the first time actually I was entering Ladakh, and I didn't know, that for the rest of my 40 years of service, I'll continue to be in Ladakh, or connected to Ladakh in some way or the other.
Amazing. Were you also on that high that time that, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee had traveled to Lahore, Nawaz Sharif had received him very well, and there was this talk of new dawn of friendship between India and Pakistan, and Aman Ki Asha was to happen. And suddenly Kargil happened. What were your thoughts that time?
Yeah, so it was a big stab in the back. We were all monitoring what's happening in the media and the visits that were taking place. Atal Bihari Vajpayee going across. Of course, one thing that did strike us was that Musharraf apparently did not salute the Prime Minister, because he had already this plan in place, which we came to know, immediately after the Aman Ki Asha happened, the stab in the back which took place. So that, of course, was a very bad vibe that Pakistan sort of gave us that time.
Now, I was in Kargil that time as a young reporter when I first met him. That time, initially, the Pakistanis were shelling very extensively, and they were very extensively. They had come into Indian territory almost across 150 kilometers long area from the Mashko Valley through Dras, Kaksar, Kargil, Batalik, Siachen Glacier, the southern part, and subsector Hanif, Turtuk area. They had already come in and they were shelling. Heavy artillery shelling was taking place and hitting the Dras brigade. Sir, when you were inducted, Tololing operations were just being planned, because initially the Bofors guns hadn't been inducted, and each time our patrols were going up, we had more body bags coming down.
Yes, so it was a very challenging situation. And to continue with where I left earlier, 10th of June, I joined the battalion at Gumri. 11th of June, we were placed under command 56th Mountain Brigade, which was at Dras, to be reserved for the capture of Tololing. 11th of June, we were placed under command. 12th of June, the unit moved to Dras. And the 13th night, I was sitting on top of Tololing.
Wow.
So that is the speed with which the operations were, being carried out in that area. And it was extremely challenging. The terrain there is extremely challenging. High altitude, 16 to 18,000 feet, sub-zero temperatures, rarefied atmosphere, not a blade of grass, to take cover. And on top of that, the enemy sitting on top in dominating positions, with their guns pointing down at us, along those approaches along which we were to attack and recapture these features. So very, very challenging times, but it is only the Indian Army, which could have done what we did during Operation Vijay.
Brilliant, brilliant. 13th June is a day which nobody in the Indian Armed Forces and our country should ever forget. The first victory from the 26th of May, when Kargil victory was declared, that was the time, sir, that when Kargil Vijay Divas started, that was the time that the Pakistanis were shelling us, and each time our patrols went up, they went missing. Or Kaksar, you must have, what were you told about Kaksar when Saurav Kalia's patrol went missing and he was apparently tortured by the Pakistanis very badly?
Yeah, that's true. We came to know much later, because we were, part of our own operations in the area of Dras and Mashko Valley. But a lot of rumors were that time, it was the initial stages of the battle. We were being inducted to capture these features. And initially there were a lot of rumors floating. We were not sure that who are these people sitting on top, what is the strength, how much strength, is it the Pak Army regulars, or is it,
Terrorists.
Some terrorists sitting there. But slowly by the time, we launched operations, we had a lot of clarity with regard to the strength. And we were very clear that it is the Pak Army soldiers who are sitting on top, occupying the dominating features, who were infiltrated across and occupied these features.
And Tololing was like mission impossible initially when 100 guns boomed together. 100, from a 155 mm howitzer to 130 mm to field guns. And in that, soldiers were climbing on top. Once Tololing was captured, you were on top of Tololing. I think 2 Rajrif was the battalion that went into Tololing. The next biggest task was given to you. It was baptism by fire for you. What was your task the moment you got on top of Tololing, sir? Because Tololing was just a stepping stone. The Pakistanis were on all dominating positions, including Tiger Hill and 4875.
Absolutely. So 13th of June night, 13th of June, Tololing was captured, and we were given orders early in the morning that that 13 JAK will now move up on top of Tololing and progress operations from Tololing top to the balance of the Tololing ridge, which led up to point 5140, and in between that we had a huge feature called Hump complex, which was partially captured by 18 grenadiers.
Correct.
So we moved in, and I must also tell you that 13th night when I reached the top of Tololing, we were under very heavy artillery shelling. 5140 was not yet captured, and we were getting direct machine gun fire onto us from point 5140. So the movement was very slow. Troops were barely acclimatized actually, because 5th of June the unit had reached, 10th of June I had myself reached. I had barely got any acclimatization. So the movement was very, very slow, plus the artillery shelling and machine gun fire coming from 5140. We started in the morning at around 9, and by around 2:30 at night is when I linked up with Colonel Kushal Thakur, CO-18 grenadiers on top of Tololing.
Wow. So how old were you that time? How old was Colonel Kushal Thakur that time? That is CO and 2IC of 2 different battalions, and both that performed exceptionally well. You were leading from the front.
Yeah, so
on top of Tololing.
Absolutely. So the first 3 people to reach from my battalion on top of Tololing were me, my doctor, Captain Rajesh Adav, who was with me, and third was my radio operator, Mohan. So 3 of us, and the rest of the companies were following up, of course. But my aim was to link up with CO-18 grenadiers at the earliest, and so that is why I was moving ahead. So once I met Colonel Kushal Thakur, I still recall very clearly, 2:30 in the morning, he was sitting in a pit, and he shook hands with me. I sat down with him, and we exchanged a little bit of notes. And continuously at that time also artillery shelling was going on. And within about half an hour, 40 minutes, it gets daylighted a little early in those altitudes. Yes. When daylight broke, when I saw around me, I saw, 7 bodies of soldiers of 18 grenadiers who had laid down their life on the same night in artillery shelling.
My God.
And when I, looked at that, that gave me my first understanding of what lay, in store ahead for me as far as the Kargil War is concerned. It was very, very difficult times. And when I was trying to absorb this situation, trying to digest, what exactly is happening around, where the enemy is and where is 18 grenadiers, etc. My radio operator came to me, Mohan, and told me that General Mohindapuri, the GOC, wants to speak to you. And I was a little taken aback that why should the GOC want to speak to me? But he came on the net, and we were on the radio net, and he said that, your CO has been taken ill, he's been evacuated, and you take over the battalion. There was total silence from my side. And, it took me some time to digest that. And he again repeated, any doubts? Joe, he used to call me Joe. And I said, so no doubts. I said, okay, all the best. Make your plans and report to your brigade commander. Out. And, now suddenly I was the commanding officer of the battalion in the middle of the war. And there can be nothing more challenging than this. Because, the first thing that came to my mind is, that second-hand command, you're giving advice to the CO and, making plans. But the rifle is not being fired from your shoulder.
Yes.
Now, I will have to start making my plans. I will give the orders. And on my orders, companies will launch attacks on these areas which the Pakistanis had occupied, and people will even lay down their lives.
Absolutely.
So digesting that, magnanimity of the situation at that moment was a huge challenge for me at the beginning of the Kargil War. We had just started there for 13 JAK Rifles.
Oh, absolutely. And then I remember, because I was in Dras reporting, I was at the Dras brigade, and I remember you were tasked and you had 2 companies with you that you had launched for 5140 to attack from 2 different sides, and very brave officers, including Captain Vikram Batra and Captain Major Jamwal.
Correct.
Please tell us about that. So how was 5140 captured?
So initially, we inducted Alpha Company and captured the rest of the area of the Hump complex, which was interlinking between Tololing and 5140. That had to be cleared first before we could launch the attack on point 5140. So that was our first success. The entire Hump complex, if you see closely, you have walked up to Tololing yourself,
Yes.
20 years of Kargil,
Yes.
is big boulders.
I will tell you that story about my climbing Tololing to interview him 20 years after Kargil when he was commanding a corps in Kargil for India Today. I had done that interview, but that's a story that we will come to in just a bit. Sir, please tell us about. Go on, sir.
So the entire Hump complex was big boulders. You see, and each boulder was acting like a bunker or a sangha for the Pak soldiers who were deployed there. And one sniper behind one boulder could stop a battalion attack into that area.
Absolutely.
So that was the challenge. And while we moved Alpha Company, but initially it was very difficult to move ahead because of the reasons that I have just mentioned. So we tried innovation. In battle, this is one of the important lessons that we learned, that you have to innovate. So the rocket launchers that we were firing at close proximity, to dislodge the enemy and then launch the attack, were not successful. Because the boulders were so big that the HE-80 round or even the HE round, when it was hitting those boulders, there was no effect. We changed our plans. We used the HE in the airburst role. A rocket launcher can fire airburst because while the boulders were there, but they did not have any air cover.
Correct.
So
the Sanghars did not have any cover on top.
Yeah, exactly. So we got 4 rocket launchers and we were firing airburst. I was there in front with 2 companies lined up behind. This was in the daytime on the 16th of June, I still recall. And so we fired a couple of airburst onto the enemy. But again, this was, uphill like this. So it was difficult to judge the exact distance. And again, this also did not have any effect.
Oh, it didn't?
It didn't.
But weren't you also scared? And for the benefit of some of our young viewers, an airburst is a shell that explodes in the air and hundreds of shrapnel, red hot shrapnel, come crashing down. So if they pierce your head or your shoulder, your head's gone, your shoulder's gone, and there have been terrible casualties because of the airburst.
Correct. So the airburst is one of the most feared thing, when you're in the open.
Yes.
And the Pakistanis were also firing, artillery onto us. Airburst over our heads. And the only thing, that could save us was that we were keeping our fingers crossed कि मेरे ऊपर नहीं फटना चाहिए. That's the only, cover that we had actually, or hope that we had, that, to prevent casualties. But anyway, so another incident I want to sort of explain here in detail is about the bravery of our soldiers.
Sir.
When I was standing there, we were firing these rocket launchers in the airburst role. Next to me was Ranbir.
Yeah.
He was firing a rocket launcher, airburst. He fired one rocket and he told me, sir, I can see the sniper. And I'm going to take him on with the next round. And I also, just glanced from behind the cover and I saw the sniper there with the weapon, ready position. And I was talking to Ranbir. I said, listen, you have just fired from here. Change your position. While he was telling his number 2 to load the next round, the number 2 standing next to him loading the round. I am talking to him to change his position. He's telling his number 2 to load the round. The round loaded, he stood up. Right next to me, 1 feet away. He stood up and was ready to fire when the sniper round came, right here.
Yes.
And he fell down in front of me, Ranbir, and I saw him dying. He was breathing and breathing for the next 5-7 minutes. And that scene, I can never forget in my entire life. And there was nothing I could do, nothing we could, do to save him. And then I looked down, we saw the 2 companies lined up, ready to attack, and they were looking at me. Ab ye kya karega? Sio. Within minutes, there was another sniper round, Jagannath, 50 feet away from me. He got around and he died there. I had to call off the attack. This was the lesson I learned, that during a day attack, when your casualties are happening and people are seeing, it can really bring your morale down into your boots. I had to call off the attack. I went back to Tololing while the companies remained there. I went back to Tololing because you had a better view from Tololing over the Hump complex onto 5140. From there, again, innovation. We had a Milan missile there, Det. So that Chetri of the guards was there. I told him, listen, that is the bunker from where the firing coming of the enemy, Rocky Knob area. And he fired the Milan missile. But the Milan is a little heavier. and it went in the same direction of the bunker. And while I was hoping that it will go and hit, it just got grounded because maybe
It
lack
didn't
of
have velocity
oxygen.
and oxygen.
Lack of oxygen. It's got a motor
Wire.
running behind. Exactly, didn't work. Then I spoke to the commander, Brigadier Amarol, and I told him, "This is the situation. We are badly stuck and we are not able to move." And that is the time he did reconnaissance the whole day on the 17th, and then he got one Bofors gun in the direct firing role.
Yes.
You see, in the direct firing role, the artillery gun fires like a rifle. So you have to have, the line of sight. Exactly. And he got that gun and he told me, listen, the area from where you explained to me where the fire is coming, that area of Rocky Knob, I've got this gun. And he put me through to the gun.
Yeah.
Directly.
One single gun.
One single gun.
I remember that incident.
Exactly. So from Tololing, I was controlling that gun straight to the gun position.
Yeah.
And I told him to fire. And he fired a round. This was, in the afternoon of 17th.
Yeah, that's right.
And he fired a round, it missed. I gave him correction, sitting on top because I was the closest and watching with the binocular. And after 2 rounds, the 3rd round went and hit the Rocky Knob. It was blown to smithereens. You see, a 155 mm round, when it hits a tank,
Yeah.
in the plains, the tank topples. That is the kind of kinetic energy, it wields. And with the explosive, that bunker was blown to smithereens. In daytime, I immediately told Bhaskar, who could not see, while he could hear the sound, etc., but I could see from Tololing. I had the complete, visual from there. And I told him, this is the time, move in.
Attack.
And during daytime, just before last light, Alpha Company went in, killing 6 Pakistani soldiers. And that is the time when we had the entire, Hump complex in the hands of 13 JAK Rifles. And the first victory, is very, very important.
Absolutely.
Because till the time you get your first victory, the morale of the boys is still not up to it. And that is when they get the confidence that we can also do it. And then the morale of the battalion was sky high.
Absolutely. If I may, I remember this incident, and this is perhaps the first time, and it was just you and Brigadier All. There was nobody else there because I remember not very far from the Dras Brigade, one single Bofors in direct firing mode, Brigadier All sitting on the road on a small parapet with binoculars and directing and speaking to you on RT. I was right there. And, as an aside, he got very angry. What are you doing here? I said, sir, just watching. And I didn't know what was happening on the other side. I had just seen a Bofors fire in direct firing mode for the first time in my life. Like the first time I'd seen 100 guns firing together as a young reporter. And he just said, get out of here. I said, yes, sir. And I just moved to a safe distance. Dheet to hote hi hain patrakar. Moved to a safe distance, and Brigadier Lakhvinder Singh, CRT, Commander RT Brigade, then he had some officers who then kind of explained how they're using Bofors in direct firing mode. Sir, so the 155 howitzer actually became your personal weapon during Kargil War. Correct. What happened from that point on, sir? You got your first victory.
We got our first
you
victory.
were gung-ho.
Absolutely.
And you were CO.
Yeah, and the morale of the battalion was sky high. So then our next objective, the main one, was 0.5140.
5140.
So we built up the rest of the battalion to the area of Rocky Knob, which we had captured. And now when you're sitting in the area of that Rocky Knob, a little forward of the Hump complex, when you look ahead, 5140, is like this.
Yes. Sheer climb.
Sheer climb, absolutely. And again, the kind of information that we had was unclear. That what is the strength of the enemy there, how are they deployed, what are the weapons they have, was absolutely missing at that time. So this on the 17th, on the 18th and 19th is when we did the reconnaissance and made a plan for the capture of 0.5140. 18th, I didn't want to attack like this frontally. That is the most dangerous approach to do. You'll suffer maximum casualties. So I sent Vikram Batra, the patrol. Alpha Company had done the job. Now it was turn, we keep rotating the companies of Delta Company and Bravo Company. So Delta Company commander at that time was Vikram Batra, lieutenant. I sent him with the patrol. I said, go to the right flank of the Hump complex, see from where we can circumvent it from the right. And I sent Lieutenant Jamwal. He was an ASC officer, less than 2 years service, still a lieutenant, attached with us, with Bravo Company commander, to go on the left flank and see from where we can, outflank this and go and attack from the left side.
2 young lieutenants.
2 young lieutenants.
What, 6 months service, 22, 21 years old? How old would they be?
So 21, 22 years old. but less than 2 years service. So they're not even captains. While they had some experience, in the counter-terrorist operations in Sopor, etc., but in conventional operations, that too in mountains, in high altitude, was not there. Those experience, that maturity is what I thought. I was worried all the time. So anyway, they went for the patrol. They came back by the evening of the 18th and told me, Vikram Batra told me, he said, there's no way to circumvent. There's a sheer fall on the other side, Bimbat Nala. So the only way is frontally. And from the left side, Jamwal came back, Sanjeev Jamwal, and he told me that from this direction, there is a way from where you can go on the left flank. So based on that, and plus what I had done my reconnaissance, the whole day I was sitting with the binocular looking at 5140 top, that how much is the enemy. And we saw some movement happening between two Sanghars. We could see two Sanghars. One on the left and one on the right is what we could see at all. That was the only information available. And that the enemy is there, we could see some movement, carrying some pakhal, sometimes carrying weapons, carefully observing from the flanks. And based on that input, we made a plan, a simple plan, that Delta Company under Vikram Batra would attack frontally and capture the right Sanghar. And Bravo Company under Lieutenant Jamwal will outflank from the left and capture the left Sanghar. And once they have done that, then we will see on the ground and play it by the ear, depending upon how much the enemy and what other Sanghars, etc. are there. We'll have to, see on the ground and react accordingly.
My God, inch by inch by inch, you're retaking territory.
Absolutely. So that was the plan. And then, like I said earlier, all the time while I made the plans, explained to them, they went and spoke to the boys, the respective companies. I spoke to the boys to boost their morale and, and tied up the artillery support as well. We made a fire base from where the MMGs were and the rocket launchers were, suitably placed, from where they could provide the last minute fire support to keep the enemy's head down when the final assault went in. And then I called both these youngsters. I said, listen, I want to give them a pep talk, because all the time it was playing on my mind कि ये 2 साल के बच्चे हैं, इनको कोई experience नहीं है, will they be able to deliver, But when I speak to them, they raise my morale in a way that they are so bubbly and so, full of confidence, it was amazing. So then I asked them, listen, when you capture, your company achieves, success there on top, you have to give me a success signal. That is a drill. We gave an audio success signal on the radio set to the next higher commander. That is me. I was a CO. And I give to my brigade commander, and he probably tells the GOC. But on the radio set, we always have a code word. Then we also have a visual. We fire something called a very light, red over red and green over green, something like that. It's all tied up. So while we do not have the very lights, but I said, you have to give me a success signal. I asked Jamwal that, tell me, Bravo Company, क्या success signal देगा मेरे को capture करने के बाद. There's more to raise the morale actually. So he thought for a while and then he said, sir, my company success signal will be, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I said, that is very funny. What is oh yeah, yeah, yeah business? And he said, no, I'm from Hunter Squadron NDA and we have this slogan in Hunter Squadron, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I let it pass. I said, okay, fine, but ensure that you give it to me in time and all that. Then I asked Vikram Batra, Vikram, what will be your success signal, Delta Company, once you capture your right Sanghar? So he thought for a while and then he said, sir, my success signal will be, Yeh Dil
Maange More. The most iconic line that, I get goosebumps even today when I hear of it.
Absolutely. So that time I found it very funny. And I told him, no bullshit, this is, not happening. So, no, sir, I will capture that bunker. I will look for some more bunkers to capture and all that. And, there were other things playing up on my mind. I said, okay, so you give me the success signal, Dil Maange More or whatever you're saying.
Dil Maange More.
And we'll see. But I didn't realize that time that this is going to be, like you're saying, goosebumps.
Yeah.
There'll be movies made on this in the future. And it will become a household kind of slogan at that time. Even now people talk about it.
This was the headline of my India Today story, Yeh Dil Maange More.
Absolutely.
So
all that happened. And so 19th night, we went in for the attack at last light. Now, you talk about 100 guns, we had 120 guns.
Wow.
21 fire units, 6 guns each in each fire unit. And then we also had 2 guns in direct firing role.
So,
one firing on the left Sanghar, one on the right Sanghar. So before last light, we have something called the preparatory bombardment, which started, and the whole feature was red. The amount of explosive, which was being pumped right in front, 100 guns, 120 guns firing, you can imagine. And sitting at the base, I could, visualize that koi jinda nahi bachega dushman, and we'll be able to, easily move up. And but to my surprise, when the RT lifted and the troops started moving, two things. One is that accurate fire were coming, MMG from the top, and they were using the illumination very, very effectively, artillery illumination, to detect our movement.
Yeah.
And why this happened is because they had made reverse slope positions on the flanks.
Correct.
So when our artillery started, they went behind. And in the mountains, the artillery round is either hitting in the front or some falling on the top. But the moment it crosses the crest, it goes into the valley behind.
Correct.
So the positions which are behind, people are safe. So they had also planned very intelligently. And the moment the RT lifted, they came and occupied those features and they were firing at us.
Wow.
And whenever they used to fire the illumination round on top to detect our movement, as per drill, everybody was freezing. You freeze, you stop movement, because then he is not able to detect. The illumination round shakes.
Correct.
And if you're frozen, it appears like a stone or a boulder or something. And so they were not able to detect our movement. But they knew we are coming, because, that time on the radio set, we have something called, equipment, which is to scramble what we are talking. Secrecy device is what we call it. There was a name, I don't want to talk about it. But that also needed batteries. And we were now about 4-5 days there.
Correct.
Batteries were dead. There was nothing to recharge the batteries. So we were talking in the clear.
Correct.
Clear meaning in the open. And anybody on that frequency could monitor our communication.
Correct. 1999, we didn't have encrypted conversations.
Yeah, no, we
to
had.
to that level, to that
Yeah,
extent.
exactly. So I was speaking to Vikram Batra. Shersha kahan pahunch gaye ho? His code name was Shersha, and Jambal was Sangram.
Sangram.
And that conversation was happening.
Yours was, if I remember correctly, Chanakya.
Chanakya, that's right.
Chanakya.
Yeah. So the person sitting on top, the Pakistani, they also had ANPRC radio set, which exactly like ours. Only thing is that it says Pak Ordnance Factory and ours says Ordnance Factory Kirki. And that was the only difference. So he was able to monitor our communication.
And you were able to monitor his.
No, he was talking on line. They had
He
laid
was talking
lines.
on, they had laid lines. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So they had laid lines. We could not monitor their communication. They were monitoring ours. The moment our Sandhya batteries, that equipment batteries went dead. And so then he came on the radio set. Tried, psychological warfare. And he came on the net and he says, Shersha, tum upar aa rahe ho, bachoge nahi, and, gali galoch and all that, ke don't come up, is what he was trying to play. But Vikram Batra immediately responded and he, abused him.
Yeah.
And he told him, ke just wait for a few hours more, we'll be reaching there and we'll see कि ऊपर कौन रहता है और कौन नहीं रहता है, kind of thing and all that. So that little incident also happened while we were assaulting 5140. So since Bravo Company was on a little gradual slope on the flank, they reached first. Around 2:30, Jamal and his company reached on top and they captured the area of left Sangar, following the complete drill, firing the rocket launcher, lobbing grenades, and firing the close support weapons in close proximity, and they captured that area. And 3:35 in the morning, he gave me the success signal on the radio set. Oh, yeah. And everybody heard it.
Yeah.
It was a big morale booster. And you'll be surprised, while we are in war, but in the fire base, where the other two companies were there, Alpha and Charlie Company, Bhaskar was not very far from me, Gurpreet was a little away. And I was continuously monitoring, with the radio set on my ear.
Sir.
It was not, my radio set was never with my operator.
Correct.
That he will come and tell me कि आपसे वो बात करना चाहता है, and then I, say Chanakya for Shersha and all, nothing. I had my radio set with me all the time, continuously monitoring. You have to be on top of the situation to react immediately.
Absolutely.
And so there was a lot of cheering and all that happened. And then Vikram Batra came on the radio set. He was a little worried now कि वो पहुंच गया, मैं नहीं
मैं नहीं
पहुंचा
पहुंच
हूँ.
पाया, हाँ.
That little child in him. And
Which we saw later also.
Yeah, you met him after this attack. And then he said, nahi, sir, we are about to reach, just wait, and I'll also do my part and give my success signal and all that. So it took a little more time, and he reached, he cleared his Sangar, and when he cleared that area, his company, then on the right flank, they saw there were 5 more
bunkers, Sangars.
Sangars, with some were with, cover as well, and that took some time to clear. So another hour's time, then he came on the radio set having cleared that. And it actually happened, I'll look for some more bunkers to capture. And it happened like that, Sometimes what you say just happens. And then he gave me the success signal, Yeh Dil Maange More.
I would have goosebumps when I'm listening to this story. I've heard the story from you. I've heard the story from him. I've heard the story from so many braves of 13 JAK Rifles. But each time this story gives you goosebumps because that valor was truly mission impossible. Sir, that was truly mission impossible. It was impossible to climb and capture those bunkers when the Pakistanis were firing down and at times just throwing boulders and rocks down at our climbing soldiers.
Yes.
And they were very well stocked, very well armed. They had a lot of ammunition.
Yes. So we captured, from the area of Rocky Knob, 12.7 mm KPBT, which is a tripod. And we had to bring it down using mules after we captured that. So that is the kind of weapons. They had laid lines. In the entire area, we captured, badam, kishmish, nor soup. And they were very well sort of equipped and logistics-wise sustained. They had laid
Pakistani
lines.
Army war diaries and their salary books.
Absolutely.
Pay
books,
books.
I-cards, everything we captured from there. So they were there to stay.
But this Dil Maange More really boosted the morale of the nation. I mean, not just your soldiers.
Absolutely.
And then you came down after 5140 was captured. That was a big victory. I think then 28th of June, Three Pimple, and then Tiger Hill. And you had a bigger task. No, but I want to come down for a lighter moment for just a moment. When you came down, the entire nation knew your name, Vikram Batra's name, Lieutenant Jamwal's name, Bhaskar's name, and you were, the army chief himself. You wore your uniform and your full colonel's ranks. He put it for you.
Yeah, so, thanks to the media, actually.
No, it's actually thanks to your hard work. I mean, I'm just very privileged that we were all there to be able to see it.
Absolutely. So, when we came down, and then we had, at the base, we had the interaction with the media. You were there, and
others were there, sir.
Yeah, Barkha Dutt was there that time with Star TV, and then she took an interview, and Vikram Batra, myself, and the other officers, and that is when the whole nation came to know what the Indian Army is doing on the borders. The articles that you wrote. And of course, I have some photographs of you with 13 JAK Rifles. I'll sort of put them across later. And so what happened then was that we used to get letters from the whole nation.
Yes.
I used to get thousands and thousands of letters, which used to reach, and I used to read, and I used to put some of them, display them on notice for the boys to read from all walks of life, doctors, businessmen, youth, school children, principals, that, Dil Maange More and 13 JAK Rifles, and, doing outstanding job, and we are with you. It was a big morale booster for the battalion, for the troops. That the whole nation is with us, the whole nation knows what we are doing. That recognition, was a big, big morale booster.
But this wasn't the end of operations. You were still needed in battle, and perhaps the toughest assignment. I mean, you had tougher assignments subsequently, but the toughest assignment was still to come for you.
Yes. So, after we de-inducted from 5140, General Mohinder Puri told me that, okay, 10 days rest and refit and go back to Gumri and relax and take stock of, casualties and weapons, equipment, losses, and etc. But the very next day, we got a task that probably we'll be going with 9 per SF behind Tiger Hill. Yes. And while we were doing the reconnaissance, the task got changed to Tiger Hill, that 13 JAK Rifles will now go for the attack on Tiger Hill. We sent our, company commanders for reconnaissance, but then we were called back that no, 13 JAK Rifles will now part of 79 Mountain Brigade go for the recapture of point 4875, which was very, very strongly held.
Yeah. Because Tiger Hill, I think, then went to 8 Sikh and 18 Grenadiers.
Correct.
And they did a great job 4th of July capturing it. And again, I think it's an honor that I had a bird's eye view in terms of interacting with Colonel Thakur and 8th Sikh officers to see their operations. But, for the moment, I want to come to your tasking now, 4875. This, as one of the generals, if I remember correctly, was telling me, one of the toughest peaks to capture.
The bloodiest battle.
The bloodiest battle.
Yeah.
And 2 Paramveer Chakras it got. But tell us about that.
So,
sir.
point 4875 was a very, very dominating feature.
Yeah.
And again, I'll put across the photographs which we took later when we did the bike ride.
Yes.
And you, me, and the co-commanders are standing with 4875 in the background, which very clearly gives the domination of point 4875, about 30 kilometers on either side towards Gumri and towards Dras. So a person sitting there In fact, their artillery officer, Captain Imtiaz, was sitting there with a periscope, 30 times magnification, can dominate by observation and by fire, good about 50 to 60 kilometers of the National Highway 1 Alpha.
My God.
And the importance of .4875 was realized by the enemy also, because they held it very, very strongly. And in the entire brigade attack of 79 Brigade, there were about 60 plus Pakistanis killed. 73 weapons were recovered from the entire, 4875, whaleback,
Whaleback also.
and pimple and twin bumps.
Correct.
The entire complex of 4875, where 79 Brigade went in. So, as part of 79 Mountain Brigade attack, 13 JAK Rifles was tasked to capture 4875 top, 17 Jat to capture the whaleback and pimple complex, which was on the left side of 4875, and in phase 2 Naga was to capture the area of twin bumps, which was on the right side of 4875 towards the Tiger Hill. And the attack was to go in on the 4th of July. So from 1st of July onwards, we inducted again back into the Mashko Valley from Gumri, and we built up our logistics. Because in mountains, before attack is launched at that altitude, you have to build up your logistics to a fire base from where the attack will be finally launched, where you have to build up, your heavy weapons, your ammunition, your ration, and which takes time. And we had to do this with using fighting porters, two companies which were not to go in for assault initially. This time, Bravo company was doing the fighting porters. Along with that, we had 28 RR, two companies with us to do fighting porters and build up this logistics. So I, along with Bhaskar, we went up right to the fire base where 17 Jat was in contact and did the reconnaissance of that area. The whole day we observed and we made our plans based on what we saw. And there was from 4875 a spur coming down and there was Nala to the left. So, and then we saw that movement on top, 2-3 sanghas on top of 4875, what we could see from this side, and some movement of the Pakistanis.
It's almost at 17,000 feet altitude.
4875 is the altitude actually.
Yeah.
So
4875 meters into 3.3.
Exactly.
So
roughly that much.
Sir.
And the terrain here was a little more different.
Sir.
You see, in the area of Hump complex, I mentioned all boulders. Then steep gradient as far as 514 is concerned. Here, the terrain was steep, much more steeper, and it was slippery. That slaty kind of, texture was there. And wherein when you're walking up, you were slipping a lot.
Yeah.
So
and again, not a blade of grass grows
Not
there.
a blade of grass. That is the entire Ladakh. So the terrain here was, much more difficult. And having done the reconnaissance, then we made the plan. Bhaskar and me, he was my now 2IC plus senior most company commander, and I used to always confer with him and bounce plans of him. So we made a plan that this time it will be now Alpha company and Charlie company which will go in for the attack. Because again, rotating, Alpha was the first one, and rest everybody else had done once. So Alpha company to skirt right and capture the area on the right side of 4875, and Charlie company was to go straight along the Nala and capture the area of something called a flat top, which we could see a little flattish feature. We just give names like that. And then both the companies were to link up, and then the reserve company, which was Delta company this time, was to be, exploit beyond 4875 top. So having made this broad plan, I came down back, and then we went to the brigade ops room. General Mandapuri was there, briefed him in detail, and we coordinated the plans, coordinated the artillery. Again, we had guns and direct fire roll, 21 fire units, everything. Went back. And on the 4th of July is when we launched the attack. Now, where the companies, we call it a release point. In the plains, when we launch the attack, from where the battalion launches attack, it's called the forming up place or FUP. But in mountains, because you can't spread out in that manner. So in the release point, Alpha company and Charlie company were there, little separate. We tried not to bunch up, but it so happened that 3 artillery rounds, came and fell right in the center of Alpha company. And 3-4 of his boys got badly injured just when we were about to launch the attack, which is very, very demoralizing. But then, Bhaskar being a senior company commander, immediately took stock of the situation, and we, launched the attack. And so the companies went in. But this time what happened is, by the time we were reaching the top, because of the slow movement, we got daylighted. So 5th of July now, early morning, and the troops, both Alpha and Charlie Company are in close contact of the enemy, and it is daylight, and we have not reached the top. It is a disastrous kind of situation because now the enemy is very close to you. He's sitting on top. He can see you and he pick and choose, and they were suffering casualties.
My God.
Gurpreet, the Charlie Company commander, his radio set got damaged. Probably got artillery shrapnel or something. But then he took his radio, his artillery forward observation officer who was moving with him, he took a radio set and then he spoke to me. I was in the fire base. From the fire base, I was looking up again, at 4875, and I could see Charlie Company and Alpha Company all daylighted, and the enemy firing from top.
My God.
And he spoke to me and he said, that bunker that you explained to us, when we made the plans, is from where the accurate fire is coming. We have to do something. And, quick thinking, sitting there, I couldn't have got a direct firing. RT we couldn't have fired in any case, otherwise we would have suffered heavy casualties. Troops were in very close. Even RT in direct firing role, I could not have tried that because,
had it gone just a little haywire, it would have hit our own people.
So I was, desperately thinking what to do when I saw in the fire base, we faggot missile launcher this time. And earlier we had a Milan missile. So Kaushal, I still remember, he retired as an honorary captain, so was our major. And I told him, Kaushal, wo bunker hai, immediately fire faggot.
Wow.
Now, when he looked through the telescope, he loaded the missile, number 2 he loaded, and he looked through the telescope. He saw that bunker, and he saw, our own boys milling around, and he looked at me. I was just standing behind him. He said, "Sahab, apne bhi jawan ghum rahe hain." Maine kaha, side mein ho. There was no time. It was time critical. Enemy was firing. And उसको मैंने हटाया साइड में, मैं लेट गया उसके पीछे behind the launcher. I'm an instructor in the faggot missile launcher in the infantry school, having taught missiles and fired missile myself.
I've seen that missile.
Yeah. So there's no time to lose. मैंने कौशल को बोला साइड में हो जा, and मैं लेटा और मैंने लगाया और मैंने फायर किया missile. This missile went up like this straight and hit that bunker.
Wow.
Straight where it should have hit.
क्योंकि उसमें डर ये होता है कि कहीं वो ऑल्टीट्यूड की वजह से थोड़ा सा भी नीचे आए.
A little anecdote here. When I was firing the missile in the infantry school in Betsa Field Firing Ranges, my instructor was one Captain Alok Kakkad, Gurkhas. He had done the course in Russia. And he was my instructor. I was senior to him. I am senior to him. But there he was my instructor. And he told me, sir, the target is like this. He said, you aim left top corner and fire. He said, with the jerk, the launcher will come like this and hit right in the center.
Wow.
So momentarily when I was lying at 4875, that thing came to me because there it was a direct hit right in the center of the target. And I aimed exactly, caution center में लगाया था, left top edge पे मैंने bunker के लगाया and मैंने fire किया. It hit right in the bunker. Wow. I always recall this and remember Alok Kakkad. And now we did not know what has happened. We heard the explosion. I could not see because you're looking like this, in a mountain. Neither could Gurpreet. दो तो सब पत्थरों के पीछे बैठे हुए थे. So 17 Jat, which was going in the whaleback lower, they saw a lot of people running and all that behind. And then they were also monitoring our radio communication. And I came to know, the brigade commander told me, Brigadier Kakkad, that there has been some harkat, some casualties, some flutter there, fire another missile. So I fired another missile. Same. Wow. It went and hit. Straight there. And again, we got the same feedback. And that is the time I told Gurpreet, now's the time. Now it is daylight, Rocky Knob, daylight. This again, 2 daylight attacks. And in those conditions. And I told Gurpreet. So Gurpreet immediately told Subedar Ramesh, who was the leading platoon commander. And Ramesh had further ahead the two in the section, Natinder and Sanjay. So he sort of indicated to them. And Sanjay and Natinder, both these guys, then Sanjay was the guy who jumped in, pulled out that machine gun, and he got shot up in the bargain.
Correct.
But he took that weapon, fired, and cleared that entire area in daytime on the 5th of July. And this action, earned him his
the
Paramveer Chakra.
Again, I'm getting goosebumps. And he was again a very young kid that time.
Yes.
Very young.
Yes.
So, and with his bare hands, he pulled out the machine gun.
Correct.
Wow.
And then Charlie Company went up and we had that area. And then Alpha Company also linked up. And in daytime, on the 5th of July, we were on top. But when the two companies linked up and we reached the top, we saw that, we still did not have the complete 4875 with us. From the top, there was a small narrow ledge which was leading ahead. And there was a precipice on both sides of that ledge. And, 15, 20 meters. And on the other side of the ledge, there was a narrow, V-cut where the Pakistani was sitting with a machine gun and a sniper. And there was no way we could have moved during day there. And it was a very, very narrow approach and frontal, straight away 15, 20 meters, and we got stuck there. And we could do progress operations there. And so this was 5th of July. So I also moved up, from the firebase, climbed up from behind and with the Alpha Company, 50 meters behind where the contact was there. So 5th of July, I reached up. So 6th, complete day, 5th and 6th, we were in close contact. When I'm saying 15, 20 meters, we could, talk to each other. So there was a lot of abuses that were going on from both sides. वो वहाँ से गालियाँ दे रहा था, हम यहाँ से गालियाँ दे रहे थे. They were throwing grenades at us. And our boys, you can imagine the raw courage of the soldier of the Indian Army. They were catching those grenades, sometimes picking up the grenades and throwing it back at them.
Wow.
Why? Because the grenade has a 4-second fuse.
Correct.
It takes 4 seconds. एक बार आपने फेंका, वो lever निकला, and when it hits the detonator, it takes 4 seconds to burst. Now, when you're in close proximity, if I throw it, 4 seconds तो लगेंगे ही.
Correct.
But if you are brave enough to pick it up and throw it back within those 4 seconds,
वो एयर बस्ट उसको मार देगा.
या तो एयर बस्ट होगा या उसके पास जाके गिरेगा. But it requires courage to pick up a grenade which doesn't have a lever, which is in the process of exploding.
Wow.
What the Pakistani should have done if they had the courage is to, let the lever go, count
2 seconds.
count 2 in your hand and then throw. पर उसका दम चाहिए, which they were not doing. So that happened. And this is the place also where जब गाली गलौज चल रहा था तो वो बोलता है वहाँ के साथ ही हमको माधुरी दीक्षित दे दो, हम चले जाएंगे. This actually happened while it was portrayed in both the movies.
I wrote about it also in my book Dateline Kargil.
Correct.
कि कश्मीर ले लो, माधुरी दे दो.
Correct. And so that also happened. But the bottom line is that we were, badly stuck, and there was a lot of pressure. Why haven't you given me the success signal as yet? My brigade commander was telling me, and I said, we are not able to proceed. This is where we are stuck. So 7th of July, early morning, Captain Naveen Anaberu was in the frontmost, contact point behind that boulder where, all this was happening. And then the Pakistanis fired a RPG or a grenade, I'm not sure, but it fell in close proximity of Naveen and his leg was badly shattered. And he had to be evacuated. So Vikram Batra, now the Delta Company, which is the reserve company, second in command. Vikas Vora had already fetched up as the company commander. So he took a patrol to evacuate Naveen along with Raghunath, the JCO, who is also a Vir Chakra, and a small patrol. He went ahead and he evacuated Naveen Anaberu. And that is the time, again, the kind of person he was, always a lot of initiative and thinking ahead and wanting to do something. I just visualize now that probably what went on in his mind that 2 days the battalion is stuck here, and he was now at the frontmost point and he could see the enemy, and he on an impulse just charged. He told Raghunath, okay, wait,
क्योंकि आपका परिवार है.
And he said, let me see what I can do. And with his AK firing, he just charged. And when he charged, the enemy which was there, he killed a couple of them. But in the bargain, this was in the open. He knew what he was doing. And the enemy fired, he got a round here, he fell down. And he laid down his life, for the nation, for the battalion to, capture that point 4875. And the moment that word spread, Raghunath and behind Charlie Company and Delta Company, the troops were obviously uncontrollable. And we immediately launched an assault in broad daylight and we captured the entire. He gave us that foothold. He laid down his life, but he gave us that foothold to, immediately move ahead and capture that point 4875. 7th of July, early morning. I was sitting about, 50 meters behind when I got this information. And it was, no words, shattering information about Vikram Batra. What a brave soldier he was, so much of initiative. And so now 4875 is known as Batra Top.
It is known as Batra Top.
Recognizing his sacrifice.
And he was so full of life, Captain Vikram Batra, and so in awe of you, so much in awe of you, because you were leading from the front. He was learning so well. And so when somebody says that he got a Vir Chakra because, of media, you know, I mean, you saw that valor firsthand. You saw that bravery firsthand. Hurts?
No, it definitely hurts. And I tweeted that time that, nobody can sort of take away that bravery from him.
Because that is bravery, that will inspire generations of soldiers.
Absolutely.
And it does inspire generations of soldiers. I met somebody who told me that, when we'd written about this valor, that it inspired them to do something for the nation. But Kargil was just one part. I mean, we won the Kargil War, but you had a lot in store for you subsequently in terms of, after Kargil, you went to China as a defense attaché. Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
And you speak the Chinese, the Mandarin language.
Our defense attaches who go to China, they do a 2-year language course, and then they are deployed as a defense attaché in Beijing. So after the Kargil war was over, we inducted back in the army headquarters. Probably somebody realized that Shahjahanpur is not too good a place for a 2 PVC battalion, so it was changed to Lucknow.
Sir.
And so we de-inducted now to Lucknow, and we were there for about a year. But then we got deployed for Parakram, 2002.
Yes, Parakram, that's
Yes. So Parakram, let me tell you, we were ready to go to war.
Yeah.
Part of one of the offensive formations. And that is the time, I want to talk about the boys, the kind of troops that we have. That now I was a full-fledged commanding officer that time. I was officiating during Kargil War. The boys would come up to me कि साहब पिछली बार चार्ली कंपनी गई थी अटैक के लिए, इस बार मौका मिला तो हमारी कंपनी जाएगी. We want to go and earn our gallantry.
Our Paramveer Chakra.
Exactly. So that is the kind of, they used to come to my little bunker. We were deployed in the deserts, and the Jawan would walk up to me because I am always 13 JAK.
Yeah.
In the sense that I was commissioned and all my service is in 13 JAK. I never went to any other battalion. So I have that very close rapport with all the boys. I was adjutant for a very long time in the battalion. And I made a point, thanks to my commanding officer, Colonel Jamwal, my first CO, who was very, very strict, that, you should call the boys by name.
Every soldier by name.
So about 80% of the boys, because troops change also, I knew them by name. And the boys also knew me. That team which we talk about, the trust factor in the team is very, very important in war or in any adverse situation.
So
I knew which boy will deliver where and whom to put where. And they also had trust in me, having seen me throughout in the battalion. So that makes a lot of difference. So I was very approachable. So they would walk up to me during Parakram. All the company commanders and their, Jawans and Havaldar and Jesus would come to me, "Sahab, hamari company jayegi assault mein."
Sir,
That
assault
is the
kar
bravery,
dena, assault
courage.
kar dena chahiye tha, and especially after Kaluchak massacre.
You were ready.
Yeah, I want every generation to know that even after attacking the Indian Parliament, so Pakistani terrorists, they attacked the Indian Parliament. Before that, Pakistani terrorists had hijacked IC-814. This was after they had lost in Kargil War. Sadly, India recognized Pervez Musharraf as a military dictator and president and gave him a Tri-Services Guard of Honor when he came to India as president. And then in 2002, they attacked a military station in Kaluchak and massacred army families, from a 6-month-old child to a pregnant woman to soldiers. Pakistani terrorists massacred them. Both Indian Army and Pakistan Army were lined up on either side of the border, and yet the balloon did not go up, yet the war did not happen, because the Pakistanis would float that nuclear bogey, which finally in 2019 was busted, and that was the time again he was in Jammu and Kashmir, and 2020 onwards. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But your appreciation, should we have gone across and hit them after the Kaluchak massacre?
I was commanding a battalion that time. I think we should have, but I'm sure that there are bigger things at play that time, wherein the decision was taken, to having been deployed for almost a year, that we did not go to war.
So then your life took a little turn. From, fighting the Pakistanis, you were then sent to China. As a defense attaché.
So after having completed 2 years of command my battalion, I got picked up. We have a very rigorous selection procedure to go as a defense attaché to Beijing, and I did my 2-year language course, and then I was deployed in Beijing from 2005 to 2008.
And that was the time the relationship was also undergoing a very positive change.
Yes, so those were the good times with the India-China relations, and lots was happening. Mill-to-mill exchange was taking place. A lot of visits were happening on either side. Their air chief, General Chiao Ching-chen, visited India. I accompanied him, and we took him, all over, visiting military and air force institutions and training centers, etc. General J.J. Singh, our army chief that time, visited China, and it was an excellent visit. Pranab Mukherjee, our defense minister that time, visited China, and then we signed a memorandum of understanding of military cooperation between both the countries. And as a result of that, we had the first hand-in-hand military exercise after
Kunming.
1962 in Kunming. So that was a big event that took place, and really warming up of relations that was happening in that period, 2005, 2008. I got to travel all over China. I've been to Lhasa, I've traveled in that Qinghai Tibet Railway, which is again a state-of-the-art train. And Prime Minister
Manmohan Singh. Then Prime Minister
Manmohan Singh that time visited in 2013.
13.
Yeah, no, earlier.
Before that
when
also.
I was there. Yeah, 2013 also he visited. And so those were the good times, and relations were warming up. And then 2008 Olympics happened.
Yes, the
And
Beijing Olympics.
Yes, I was there that time. We saw a totally different China, and
In fact, when E. Ahmed was the External Affairs Minister, he had also visited China, and I'd accompanied that visit. And when Dr. Manmohan Singh visited in 2013, when BDCA was signed, so I'd accompanied Dr. Manmohan Singh. I was reporting on that assignment also. So we thought that relationship with China was really, really improving, and lots was happening. And the current External Affairs Minister was then our ambassador. Yes. In China, 2008-9, if I remember.
No, 2013.
2013, he was our ambassador in China. Yeah. When BDCA was being signed. But so what happened? So when you came back from China, you commanded your brigade in Tangse. Correct. In Eastern Ladakh.
Correct.
And you commanded the division in Ladakh.
Yes.
So China के साथ एक तरफ friendship हो रही है, दूसरी तरफ चुमार और डेप्सैंग और डेमचौक पे उनके incursions भी हो रहे हैं. What was the thinking that time of the Chinese and of our establishment then?
Yeah, it's quite surprising that they did that. We have signed so many agreements with them, which started, in 1988 actually, post the Rajiv Gandhi visit, wherein we decided that we'll keep the boundary issue on one side.
Post Sumdorongchu.
Yes, post Sumdorongchu.
Post Sumdorongchu.
That was 87. And continue with the rest of the relations. Hoping that, when our relations, our economic relations, trade relations are much, much better, then probably we'll find an answer to the boundary question as well, which is very, very complex. And then we signed these agreements, 1993 Border Peace and Tranquility Agreement, 96 Confidence Building Measures, 2005 protocols, and of course you talked about the BDCA. And using these agreements, we maintained status quo and peace and tranquility on the borders for good about 3 decades. Which was what the agreement talked about, to maintain peace and tranquility and continue with the rest of the relations. But then post 2013 onwards, China got a little assertive on the borders, wherein they are trying to control areas which they claim. You see, we have a boundary question, which is very, very complex. Then we have the LAC, line of actual control, which was defined as, the area, the line till where both sides physically exercise control. But the issue is that, and all the agreements talk about the LAC, maintaining peace and tranquility of LAC. But the LAC is also not mutually agreed.
Where is the LAC is not demarcated.
Yes. So there are areas where the LAC, what the Chinese perception is and what our perception is, coincides. There are certain areas where it does not coincide. So there we have these areas of differing perception. Their perception and our perception. So which we don't, agree to. We have our LAC actually. So they have been, over a period of time, trying to control this area which they claim, but they have no control. So physically, move into those areas, and more of using, gray zone tactics, looking at our reaction. You know, if you don't respond, then they'll continue to sit there. You know, one day some track comes up, then it becomes a road, then it becomes, you know, one small hutment comes up, then they keep building upon it, testing your red lines. So in this grey zone warfare, I always say that as an adversary, you know, we have to draw our red lines. Otherwise, he'll keep pushing you till, you know, keeping it, you know, under the threshold, below the threshold. But the threshold has to be decided by us.
We have to decide.
We have to decide. You know, if otherwise he'll keep coming.
And that threshold you decided as Army Commander in 2020.
Correct.
Before that, it was like...
No, so at all places, when Dapsang happened or Tumor happened, we reacted. You know, we reacted and then we, you know, pushed him back.
So what happened in 2020?
So 2020, you know, we were aware that the Chinese, every year, they mobilize their forces and come on the Western Highway. You know, opposite DBO, there's an area called Kargil War, Tien Shui Hai, then Saidullah, and they do the exercises. You know, from Xinjiang, these 3-4 divisions are mobilized, they come into that area, do exercise and go back, which was a regular feature. And in 2020 also, we were aware that they are there in that area and they are carrying out the exercise and all that. But that they are going to, you know, build up the forces close to the LSE and try and occupy these areas which they are wanting to control was actually a surprise.
They wanted to control. They did not want to... I mean, they wanted to physically dominate.
Correct.
Up to their claim line.
Correct. So that they're going to do this was something which was a surprise to us.
But you were there that time, if I remember correctly, you were on a helicopter and you saw a Chinese helicopter.
Yeah, so
somewhere.
It all started on the 5th of May, actually. As Army Commander, I was visiting DBO, and on the way back, you know, coming along the Shiok, we came to the area of Galwan, and I, you know, just turned my helicopter into the area of Galwan, and right across, I saw a PLA helicopter which appeared to have transgressed on our side of the LSE, and then the moment he saw us, he turned back. When he turned back, you know, I told my pilot, you know, let's go ahead and see what's happened. And he turned back and then he landed in a, you know, unprepared surface. It was quite surprising. And then we came back. But by the time, you know, we moved back and I landed in Leh, we were having a face-off that was happening in the area of Galwan. We had troops in that area. So exactly on the LSE, there was a face-off. But what was also unusual was the strength that they had brought in that face-off on the 5th of May and the way they were equipped. You know, they were carrying the right gear and those shields and, you know, the sticks and all that, which appeared very, very unusual. So what we did that next day morning, you know, we flew UAVs to see what is happening behind. And then we saw that, you know, they had mobilized close to the LSE, a large amount of forces coming along the Galwan. And when we see that road which comes to Galwan, along the Galwan River, it comes along Soksalu salient, where we have patrol point 15, 17, etc. So our assessment was that in case he's with so much strength, then he'll come to those points as well. So we immediately inducted some reserve forces which were there with us into the area of Soksalu salient. And sure enough, on the 17th of May, you know, they came into these areas, towards these areas as well. And again, here also we gave them face-off on the LSE itself.
But while he was coming in, you were already there.
We were there, and we gave them a face-off, stopped them in that area on the LSE. It was on the 18th of May actually when you know on the north bank of Pegongso, when they came, you know, using hundreds of vehicles. They have a road which comes up right to Finger 4, which is our claim line. Which is the Chinese claim line.
Which is the Chinese claim line.
And we claim till Finger 8 on the north bank. So across Finger 8 from the south bank, you know, early morning I got a report, and we immediately, you know, went across and gave them a face-off. But the troops which were there with us that time were not adequate to, you know,
push them back.
So here, for the first time, a huge scuffle happened on the north bank, wherein, you know, there was stone pelting and fisticuffs, and our officer got thrown into the Pengongso Lake, and you know. The way the nuance I want to explain there is that the PLA officer pulled our officer out.
Correct.
So, you know, while there were troops which had come from outside, But there were some troops with whom, we had familiarity, with whom we used to sort of talk on a daily basis.
Correct.
So all that was happening there. But again, here was the first time when we were clear that, what the intent of the PLA is. It's not a normal face-off that has been happening in all these areas over a period of time. He's coming with a large strength. And, his intent is something totally different. And they came in and occupied the area of Finger 4 and stayed there. So during this time is when, when we realized what the PLA is up to, is when we inducted additional forces into Ladakh from the Western Front as well initially with the Northern Command. And then we moved in, reserve forces from the mainland, the Army Headquarters Reserves.
And that kind of shows our strength, the speed with which you were able to induct not just your reserves, but also additional forces, that
Correct.
Army Air Force coordination.
Absolutely. So
Did that surprise him?
it would have surprised him. It would have definitely surprised him because we inducted a large amount of force along both the Zojila axis. The roaming axis was full. Continuously, bumper to bumper, there were vehicles inducting, additional troops, artillery, ammunition, logistics, billeting, and also, we were inducting armor and mech using the C-17s. They were all being flown into Leh. So while getting to Leh was one aspect, but from Leh, moving over a frontage of 800 kilometers from Leh was a huge challenge to maintain the surprise.
And that was a great decision that you have all massive bridges that can take
Yes.
the weight of the armor and mech being inducted.
Absolutely. So after the 17th, when this happened, then we asked for a flag meeting. Or continuously we have been talking, but then it was the first Corps Commander level flag meeting ever, which was held on the 6th of June, 6th or 5th of June, I recall, 6th of June at Trishul. So the Corps Commander, had a flag meeting with counterpart, General Liu Lin, Southern Xinjiang Military District Commander. And, the flag meeting continued the entire day and most of the night, because he was trying to resist, going back, because he had come with the intent to come and occupy. And he had that advantage at that moment because he was occupying all the areas which were claimed by us, and he wanted to retain that. But finally, it was agreed that we will disengage on 6th of June. And it was agreed that we will disengage in a step-by-step manner. We'll start with Galwan as the first step, then come to the Soksalu salient, then come to the North Bank, and then disengage completely from this area. So once that was achieved, while there was a little happiness that, he's going to disengage and go back, but for me, there was a little worry always there that, why step by step, they always try to put a spoke somewhere or the other. And and also it was decided that while we will disengage at Galwan, and the process was, agreed that, so many troops at 1.5 kilometers, so many at 3 and so many at 5, etc. And in what format it will be done. It was also decided that we will have an observation post to monitor the disengagement. Both sides will have a OP and all that. And it will be monitored at the General Officer Commanding, GOC level. So GOC of the Treacherous was there and his counterpart was there. And that OP thing is something that created the problem for us at Galwan. So he put a tent there. While we resisted that, there's no need to put a tent, but he said, no, not to worry, we will remove this tent the moment the disengagement has happened. So disengagement happened at Galwan. The troops went back to 1.5, 3.5 and 5 kilometers, etc., the numbers that were required. And then we told him, okay, remove the tent, this OP. And he was, dilly-dallying. He was trying a smart act at his level. Something that was agreed to at the highest level, he was trying to, not sort of obey that order and that GOC of the 3-day counterpart. Now we told him, okay, fine, tell us a timeline when you will remove this tent. He would not give a timeline also. No, it was decided at the co-commander level, they have to decide, they will give me orders and only then I will remove, etc. Which was against, what was agreed. So then we said, okay, fine, you keep the tent, we will also put a tent right next to you. And when that happens, when you remove, we will also remove our tent. Now, in the process, this because the negotiation had been going on the whole day, it was late in the evening, and we were then putting the tent there. And that is the time when little troop level was higher on both sides, and things went out of control. Somebody threw a stone, some boulder, some push, and then it was a kind of a mob. And that is where, then it became pitch dark night, the Galwan, flowing in between, and we suffered casualties. The Chinese also suffered heavy casualties. And, that is where the entire dynamics of this, face-off business with the initial attack completely changed.
Sir, we suffered 20 fatalities. How much in your assessment did the Chinese suffer?
Yeah, so the Chinese also lost their commanding officer.
They lost
And
this,
they suffered about 45 plus casualties.
45 plus
Yes.
casualties.
So this was also confirmed by Australian intelligence, which came up later with an article, and also the Russian TASS had also published this, that they have suffered that many casualties. Plus, we were also observing. We had an observation post on one of the flanks of Galwan. Wherein he was counting the number of people that were being carried and taken, which was much more than 45 actually. One was not sure that time that how many fatal and how many this, but they have suffered a large number of casualties. While they admitted only 4, they're also much later.
That also much later.
Absolutely. So they also suffered a large number of casualties, but they want to save face and they don't want to admit their own casualties. Well,
we are a democracy. But if the Chinese suffered 45 plus casualties, was this the first time that India very strongly and militarily stood up to China, drew a red line and said, thus far and no further?
Absolutely. So Galwan was a red line. And then we told the Chinese very, very clearly that, we have lost people and you have broken all the agreements. So now we are not going to follow those agreements. And, we're not going to get into those scuffles that was happening earlier, the face-off drills and all that is over. And that was very, very clearly indicated to them. But post-Galwan, while we continue to have flag meetings, but since he had also suffered casualties, that acrimony continued and he was not ready to relent at all. And it was during this period, from the 15th of June till, end of August, is when all that build-up, which I talked about earlier, happened. And we continuously planned our quid pro quo options. We planned, we rehearsed, we continued to maintain surprise, and went into a large number of details that what is to be done, what is not to be done, etc.
Contingencies. There's one aspect that I must tell our viewers about, and those who are listening to this very fascinating podcast. India's biggest response, if I may, to what the Chinese had done was the QPQ operations or the quid pro quo operations. Sir, tell us about that, because I know how, and I've seen you firsthand in Kargil, and I've had the privilege and honor of seeing you firsthand in operations, even during Operation Snow Leopard in Ladakh. This QPQ operation, what was your thinking and what was the government's directive to you, sir?
Yeah, so after Galwan happened, the Prime Minister visited Ladakh and we briefed him at length. And that's exactly what has happened. And, what are the intentions of the Chinese, how they're going about doing it, and what are our plans, etc. And after having discussed the whole thing, he gave us a totally free hand, completely free hand.
The Prime Minister gave you a free hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. To the army. That, these operations have to be handled by the army the way you want to conduct them. While at the same time, at the higher level, the External Affairs Minister was talking to his counterpart. The NSA was talking to his counterpart. The WMCC meeting was happening. And all the channels at all, all of our nation approach was happening. And but the entire support that we got that time was tremendous. And then all that, build up, which I talked about, happened. And we continuously planned our quid pro quo options, that what we need to do to, in any negotiation, has to be a give and take. So right now we only had to take because they were sitting into areas which we claimed, and there was nothing to give. So then we planned our quid pro quo options. But what happened on the 29th was early morning, 29th of August. The PLA provided us the trigger again they tried to change the status quo in the area of the south bank of Pengong. So, early morning 29th, we saw a lot of torches being flashed. And so we saw that, some troop movement is taking place to occupy those areas in the south bank. When that happened, we already had our plans in place. Immediately, early morning, pitch dark, around 5 in the morning, we launched a brigade plus size force to go and occupy the entire area of south bank.
Wow.
And this was, classic race against the passes from where the Chinese were coming from the other side, and this side, our troops were moving, and we were able to occupy a large number of area, which were dominating the Chinese positions.
And his Moldo garrison.
No, not here, not the Moldo garrison here, but his routes of movement. There's a Chuti Changla Pass, which is there on the south bank. This south bank is the area of the Gurung Hill and the Chuti Changla Pass on the other side, Blacktop, which is again on Chinese side, and the entire ridgeline up to the Pengong So. The entire feature we occupied. And we were now dominating the Chinese in that area. We did not allow him to occupy. Otherwise, he would have been dominating our Chushul garrison.
Sir.
So once we occupied that, then post that, my biggest worry was, what was right in front. The Razangla and the Rachingla, the Kailash ranges that we call, from the Spangur Gap, the Kailash range starts rising. You have the Razangla Pass, then you have the Rachingla Pass, and then that goes further right up to Kailash. And, right as a brigade commander and a GOC and a co-commander, we were talking about the race to the passes. That, we would occupy this. And now it was a situation when just across the Razangla and the Rachinla Pass, the Kailash ranges, and the Moldo garrison beyond, there was, huge amount of PLA concentration. The artillery brigade, a MEG brigade, and the armor and the infantry, they were all in close proximity. And the biggest worry that was playing on my mind is that if he just walks up and sits on these two passes, it's
curtains for us.
Curtains for us, totally curtains for me, actually. So the moment we went and occupied the south bank, and he was reacting to that, we immediately moved our forces to occupy the Kailash ranges in broad daylight. And again, this was appears very simple, but there's only just one track that goes up to Rachinla Pass. I have driven up my vehicle a number of times as a brigade commander and a GOC there. I walked up the entire area, so I knew the complete terrain. And so we moved, in a very planned manner. I don't want to sort of give that out, but we even followed that up with armor and mechanized.
Yeah.
Which was something that totally surprised the PLA. And then we were deployed on the entire Kailash ranges, overlooking the Moldo garrison on the other side, and the entire deployment of the PLA, which was, sitting on the other side. This was a masterstroke. And then the third thing we did on the same night was that there was a brigade plus size force on the north bank, which we moved up from behind, much in the rear. And that brigade went up and occupied the area much higher than that Finger 4. And again, that was a total surprise again.
Yeah, because then we were dominating him at Finger 4 up to Finger 8.
Correct.
And beyond.
And his movement actually that was taking place behind.
Correct.
So that we caught some PLA soldiers, sleeping on top when we reached up there. That was a kind of surprise. And to further build up on that, there further north there are two more passes called Kiula and Anila. And we put a battalion size force plus there as well and close all the avenues of approach to the PLA. And he was totally surprised. It was so well planned that we have something called the UDA loop.
UDA loop, yeah.
Yeah, observe, orient, decide, and then act. So, you have to get into the UDA loop of the enemy. While he's observing one situation and trying to decide and act there, you give him another situation on the Razangla Shinla. And then we're trying to digest this situation. And before he can act here also, you give him a third situation and then a fourth situation so that he's, not able to act in any manner. So that is where it went very smoothly while, the Kailash range was occupied during daytime, but he did not react at all. It was only at night that he then now started moving up on the next night onto Razangla with his armor, which we told him that, listen, Galwan has happened. We are no longer following
the protocols.
The protocols and all that. We will open fire. Do not come up. And that was a time when, our tanks, our missiles, our APCs, with their guns loaded and firing at the tank and aiming at the tank, with the finger on the trigger. And the easiest thing to do is to press the trigger.
Yeah.
But what needs courage to not press the trigger when your adversary is coming up into your crosshairs is where we stopped actually.
And those were the times that the tanks were virtually this close to each other.
Yes.
I mean, you can't even imagine that in a science fiction movie.
Yes.
And this was actually happening.
Yes.
So you were the army commander and you have tanks this close.
This close.
And suddenly he decided to pull back.
No, he did not pull back. He stayed there till February.
Till February.
But after we had done this quid pro quo options, and then we came for the flag meeting after that, his body language was totally different now. Because now we were dominating in a large number of areas. We were sitting on top of him. And he understood that, we mean business. And so now, then the negotiation started to disengage. And then in February 21 is when the disengagement process started. And we started disengagement from initially the North Bank, South Bank, and then Kailash Ranges. And then finally, after a couple of years, October last year, is when we disengaged from Depsang and Demchok.
So disengagement has happened.
Yes.
What next that India-China situation, one, does not escalate to the same or worsen, as some would say that if he and Pakistan were to come together, you've been army commander, and you've dealt with Pakistan, you've dealt with China. If both the adversaries were to come together in a way like they did in Sindoor, but that was China apparently helping Pakistan, as the deputy chief said. Is there a situation where both of them in that part of Ladakh at the Karakoram target us simultaneously? Siachen, Karakoram, Eastern Ladakh?
Yeah, you see now the kind of warfare that is happening, multi-domain warfare, contact, non-contact, where there's a lot of deniability. And, this in conjunction with the fact that, 80-81% of the weapons and equipment of Pakistan Army is Chinese. So, the collusivity factor which is there is a given. And, already in terms of, let's say, satellite imagery, in terms of ISR and all that during maybe Sindoor, I'm sure what was provided by the Chinese to the Pakistanis. So I think that's a reality and we should be prepared for that.
And we hear some voices from the Chinese side that they're looking for good relations with India. And you study China very closely even now. When the conversation is all about, some Russia-India-China trilateral, Russia-India-China talks, when they talk about this being, the century of India and China together, what do you make of it? Is this once again a Hindi-Chini bhai 1960s moment, or has China realized that now we stare the dragon down? Perhaps the first time that's happened in Galwan, when you were army commander, when you say Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave you an absolute, green signal. Do what you want, protect our land. This is our red line. China has seen this and now wants good ties with us.
Yeah, so, that is one. And the final disengagement, which happened in October, 21st of October last year, was a couple of reasons. One was that the stance that we took, that status quo ante April 2020 is what is acceptable to us, nothing less than that. And the fact that the relations on the LAC, on the borders, will dictate the relations between both the countries. This was reiterated by External Affairs Minister in all forums, everywhere, and very firmly, that the relations on the border will dictate the relation between the countries, status quo ante April 2020, nothing less than that. Was one of the major factors which played up on the mind. And second, I think since it happened in October and the elections in the US were about to happen, and I'm sure the Chinese would have done their, analysis of maybe the Trump administration likely to come. And having seen what happened in 2017, the amount of pressure that they came in with the tariffs and all that. So they would have thought that let me keep one front, safe. And then looking at our markets as well. So these are the two factors which would have played up on their mind. And they disengaged and they're looking at, warming up relations with us.
Do you see relationships warm up between India and China now, or is it that verify everything on ground? Borders have to be peaceful for the other part of the relationship to move forward. What's your thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you, from a young officer to a lieutenant general, and even now, you understand the Chinese mind.
Yeah, so it's very important that we have de-escalation on the borders, because troops, while we have disengaged from the contacts where we were in close proximity, but the large number of troop presence on both sides is still there. So they need to go back to the peace stations. That is very, very important to have a situation wherein situation does not escalate beyond a point. Anything could trigger off. And what was the other thing you asked?
How does relationship improve? Does he genuinely want to improve relationship?
Yeah, so
with us?
the trust factor is something that has to be built up now, because post 2020 the trust factor between both the countries has been totally lost, and the onus is now on the Chinese, to bring back that trust factor. They continue to, while 21st of October last year we disengaged, and the warming up of relations so-called started. The Foreign Secretary visited, NSA visited, had interactions. We decided that we will, start the Kailash Mansabha Yatra. Media journalists will be exchanged. Direct flights will start. Hydrological data we will exchange and all that. Movement is a little slow. Kailash Mansabha has happened. Other things are still happening, not so much. But on the other hand, immediately after that, they go ahead and declare, two counties, rename them in Aksai Chin. And then after some time, they declare another 27 places in Arunachal Pradesh, rename them, and then they announce the, big dam on the Yarlong Sangpo or the Brahmaputra for us, which has concerns for us. So these issues, continue to sort of irk India. And they need to be very, very careful on these issues to take it ahead from here. The trust factor has to be built, which the onus lies on China.
The onus lies very clearly on China. This was a fascinating conversation, really, really enlightening for me, and I'm sure for our viewers and listeners of this podcast. General Y.K. Joshi, Vir Chakra, Kargil War hero, and the hero of Galwan. And operations vis-a-vis China, Operation Snow Leopard. So you've seen the history of our country firsthand and been on top of that situation from Op Vijay Kargil to, incidentally, there's a story that I will have to leave for another time. 2016, when the surgical strikes happened on Pakistan the first time, you were in the MO directorate.
Yes.
You were in MO directorate. So India's strong stance against our adversaries, you've been there in the heart of action, and many, many more fascinating conversations with you in the times ahead. For joining me on the Chakravyuh podcast, sir, many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav. Always a pleasure being with you.
Always a pleasure being with you. Incidentally, I must also tell our viewers, I've had the privilege of interviewing him on top of Tololing. When he was the Corps Commander, and I said, I really want to interview you. He said, I'm going to Tololing tomorrow morning. Aajao, kar lo interview. And I walked to Tololing to interview you that time. And I did that motorcycle ride with you, the Dhruv Kargil motorcycle rally. And thank you very much for that opportunity too.
Thanks. Pleasure, Gaurav. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And look forward to many more interactions with you.
Thanks. Thank you.
That is all we have for you on this special broadcast. Many thanks for watching and for this podcast, for listening to this. Log on, tune in, and do listen to the Chakravyuh podcast on India Today.